Greta
Not in
Gerwig
real
did
life.
a pass of this script. I mean, she is noted as one of the writers of this movie. That
Yep.
has not been talked about
Not
at
talked
all.
about.
It's only been talked about on our show.
Yep.
I mean, that could be a Greta thing where she doesn't want anything to do with it, which is fine. That's her right.
Names in the credit. They could say that.
They could exploit that.
Say her name's in the credit.
Yeah. Say
You don't have to go any
from
further
the
than that.
writer of Barbie.
Well, okay, so the Barbie thing is something I thought about when I was pondering this morning what a disaster the Snow White movie is. And I was thinking about in terms of Barbie. And Snow White is not Barbie,
No.
but Snow White's in a similar boat where the Barbie movie could have been a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
It had a lot of awareness built in. The doll's been around forever, but there is a version of a Barbie movie where if it's not executed well, it could have just came and went instead of being biggest movie of the year, all-time blockbuster.
Yeah. There was people that were even saying it should be animated. And that's an insane take and that was crazy.
Take
and,
that you had.
I never had
I'll
that.
call you
No,
on the
that was
carpet, go back in the
never had it.
archives.
Never had it.
Go back in the archives. I mean, a lot of that was off air, and it almost led to fisticuffs at BOHQ.
Yeah.
But we got through that period in our lives where you thought Barbie should have been animated and was going to be a disaster.
There's no evidence of that.
So, thinking of Snow White in terms of Barbie,
Mm-hmm.
this Snow White movie, unlike Barbie, didn't do anything to try and make itself special in any way.
No.
In its presentation, in its casting, in any kind of angle. You look at that Barbie movie, there's a version of it that is completely uncreative, and it's an animated movie that it follows the lines of the straight to VHS Barbie, animated shorts you had in the past, or it's a very straightforward adaptation, plays it safe.
Yeah.
Probably does mediocre business. Instead, they really went for it. Interesting filmmaker, big take, great songs.
Yeah.
Went for it in the casting where you got Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie and Will Ferrell and America and all these people who are interesting people to cast in the movie. And Snow White didn't do any of that. And I know Disney is
Those live action
Warner
movies
Brothers.
don't do those. I mean, that's the thing. This was a by the books live action remake of an animated movie, which they've had much success with previously.
They have, but look at something like our mutual favorite of any of these Disney live action remakes. Is, of course, Aladdin. And the Will Smith factor is a big deal. And I think making that a hit, because he is a star, pre-slap, post-slap, he's a star.
Yeah.
And he did his thing and gave you an interesting angle on that movie.
Yeah.
And I know there's been other ones where they didn't do that. The Beauty and the Beast is a complete nothing, and that made $1 billion. So I get why they wanted to play it safe, but I think we're in a post-Barbie world with these kids' IPs.
Yeah.
And Snow White, I'm not saying it has to be a meta, deconstruction of the Snow White myth.
Yeah.
Is Snow White a myth? Is that one of our great myths, the Snow White myth?
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about it last week with these 7 companions. That was an opportunity to do something.
Yes.
To do something. And we talked about, should you have 7 paisans, Robert De Niro, 7 influencers, Logan Paul, I Show Speed. But cast Jim Carrey. Cast someone who you could promote and say, this Snow White movie has 7 Kevin Harts. Something. Where there is at least some kind of angle that makes this a little more special. Because we're in a post-Barbie world. We're in a post-Sonic world. And I get it. Those are movies. Well, no, Barbie's geared for little girls. They did a Barbie movie where they could have played it safe, and they didn't, and it was the biggest movie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And this Snow White movie did nothing to have some kind of angle other than it's Snow White. And I think in retrospect, that is the failing. I don't think it's the controversies. I don't think it is anything Rachel Zegler said or didn't say. I think she is, like we said last week, a complete non-factor in the success or failure of this movie. It's the fact that this Snow White movie just had no hook to it at all.
So I was looking at who did the voices of the companions.
Okay.
And forgive me for not knowing almost any of them.
Okay.
The one that stuck out to me as a known entity is Titus Burgess, played Bashful.
Okay.
Now, Titus, obviously really well known for The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably their claim to fame. And that is the only person that I would say has any sort of visibility as somebody you could put out there to promote this movie, which I don't think they did. Or if they did, it did not reach me.
Yeah, that is a reach. I liked him when I watched the first season of that show before it became unbearable, and he's good on Broadway, I've heard. Whatever. Seems like a great performer. That is not your hook in terms of casting for a giant movie.
And Magic Mirror has a voice. Patrick Page. Who's Patrick Page? Everybody in America is asking.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. That's another opportunity. You couldn't have got somebody else to do that?
Right. And it's like you're going with, which we said last week is fine. She looks like the cartoon. Rachel Zegler, who is a nobody, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. You're casting someone who's not going to be the draw in the titular Snow White character.
Yeah.
So you got to go. And I guess, did they think Gal Gadot, do you think that in their mind that was the hook? We've cast Wonder Woman as the villain. That's our big casting play. I mean, maybe when they, because this movie, they probably started the ball rolling on this 3 years ago. Is that the thinking? That Wonder Woman as the villain is our big hook? And of course, now when you get to release date, it's like she's barely even someone you could promote anymore. Her star has fallen.
Yeah. Now, there is in the article the reason why people went to see this movie.
Okay.
21% went to Snow White because of Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Okay.
But that's 21% combined.
Yes.
Went because of them. What percentage do you think is Zegler and what percentage do you think is Gadot there? I think they're trying to do some damage control with that percentage because it could be 20%. Yeah, right. 19 for Zegler, 2% for Gal Gadot.
Right. I would bet it's closer to that. I think at this point, Gal Gadot is a near zero draw for this movie.
Now, I'm going to throw out an idea.
Love it.
And this is to talk about this. I mean, the die is already cast. The companions were already cast.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows where we sit with this. If you really wanted to go for it,
mm-hmm.
What about the companions are voiced by the infamous P Posse, Leo's P Posse.
Okay.
So you got David Blaine is the Magic Mirror. He could be Magic Mirror because he's magic.
Okay.
So he's Magic Mirror. Then you could have Kevin Connolly, as we all know, E from Entourage.
And he's playing it like E.
Yeah.
Which I think is how he plays everything.
He plays everything.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire, huge.
Yep.
Right? You get him. You make him sneezy or whatnot.
Yep.
You get Jay Ferguson, who was in Mad Men, so he's part of that too.
Okay. Was Vincent Kartheiser in the P Posse?
Well, Lucas Haas was. So you could get Lucas Haas for sure.
Okay. And you could get him for cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could get so
but then you're saying Leo is a sure thing. Is Leo, you think Leo was doing this to get his buddies work?
Well, that would be the plan would be.
Yeah.
You cast the P Posse.
Yeah. Toby,
David
Blaine,
Ferguson, Haas,
E from Entourage.
Connolly.
Yeah.
And they're all sort of, that's the enticement.
Right.
Where, and the thing is, you could have DiCaprio voice one of them and not use his real name, but everybody would know it's him. And so if you see the posse doing the the companions,
Yeah.
and then you hear this voice that's like
he would
Leo,
want to be like, let's call them the dwarves.
He would double
want
down. Well,
Yeah.
he'd probably want something worse, but
Yeah.
but listen, he doesn't have the pull he used to have.
Right.
So I think if you do that, I mean, listen, Harmony Korine was sort of around that. You could put Harmony Korine in there too. I know
would
he's
get
busy
Harmony
with
Korine.
Edgelord.
Yeah.
Doing
Well,
that
he's
sort of
got
stuff.
the Baby Invasion.
Baby Invasion. So
Has
listen,
that charted yet on the top 10, or has it not come out yet?
it?
We may have to devote an episode to Baby Invasion.
Well, it's on PVOD at the moment, so
Okay.
you can rent it. So I don't know if it's getting a legitimate release.
Okay.
But so
Email us if you have seen Harmony Korine's Baby Invasion in theaters somewhere. I feel like somewhere there is a movie theater that is illegally showing that at 2:00 in the morning.
So I think that's a way. And then if you get Leo, you get Leo. And if the posse's there, then I think he's going to want to hang.
He's going to want to hang.
Yeah.
Hang in the studio.
Hang in the studio.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that was a way you could go too.
Is there, and I know this is a coulda, woulda, shoulda been, these are animated characters.
Yeah.
Is there any chance Disney ponies up and totally recasts, revoices, re-records, re-edits, gets it into theaters for next weekend, a full recasting of the Seven Companions' voices? Again, now we're too far into the process to reanimate them.
No.
They look like what they look like.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
Whatever that is how they look. We are not going to be able to get a Sonic transformation where it goes from Sonic with teeth to Sonic who's cute. That ain't happening. But I think we're sitting here on a Sunday afternoon, recast, re-record on Monday, get the new thumb drives out to the theaters by next weekend with Leo uncredited, but everyone knows, and the P Posse revoicing these Seven Companions. Get it out there by Friday night.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
So let's look a little bit at
into camera. Do it.
Do it. Let's look at.
Is there anything else? I mean, do you agree with me though that it's like that's the big missed opportunity? Is
You
the
have
casting
seven.
Of the
Yeah, you have seven
comedic
parts.
roles. Seven comedic roles.
I mean, the issue.
The Jim Carrey thing, realistically, a Jim Carrey, a Will Ferrell, a Cat Williams, like that. That's the way I would have gone. Is 7? You get one of these comedians and you do 7 versions of them. And having again loved One of Them Days in the theaters, the great Cat Williams, who called it all years ago. He called it. 7 of him with Snow White. It's a hook. It's something.
Yeah, and the thing
You don't know.
I think also the problem is too is that comedy it doesn't work in the theater anymore, so you don't have comedy stars the way you used to. Like, I understand Jim Carrey and you want Kevin Hart, and that would definitely be
Mike Myers is back doing Elon on SNL. Got Mike Myers to do.
But there's just nobody coming up. It's like listen, if they did this 10 years ago, you would have the whitest kids would be voicing the companions, or you would have half the birthday boys doing the companions. But there's just no.
Yeah,
everybody's making more money just doing TikToks, sketches than being in a motion picture.
Right.
Because they'd be like, I can't be in this motion picture because I have to do all my content for this energy drink.
I mean, Tim Robinson, I think you should leave. There's your modern comedy star that could have been not all the companions. And it's his thing. He's constantly saying something out of bounds, getting frustrated with Snow White that I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's something. This Snow White movie, and I guess it's the Gal Gadot thing where they thought that's what it was when they cast her.
Yeah.
And then come opening weekend, she's completely useless in the promotion.
Yeah.
But I think going forward, I don't know how many of these. Do you think Disney, are there any of those Snow White, crusty era Disney properties that they have yet to remake that you think is still possible? Like, that's the other thing is, like, you've said it, the Snow White era cartoons, the kids just do not have the same relationship with them. Are they done with that? Or do you think they are going to do a Steamboat Mickey, Steamboat Willie, anything that old? Or is it now just you remake Moana over and over again, you do a live action Frozen, you're done with the old?
You are. They're doing Tangled. They're doing, they're doing the more modern stuff.
Yeah.
I think
Emperor's New
They-
Groove.
they-
Do you
they-
think Spade gets a payday to do a live action Emperor's New Groove?
maybe, but I don't think that's crusty. That's more in the post Renaissance.
Yeah.
But yeah, of the old crusty stuff, I don't think so.
Is Snow White? So Snow White is the death knell for that era of princesses. This is the end.
I think we'll see a Cinderella again. I think we'll see Cinderella
title.
again, but not as Snow White.
Okay.
I think this is sort of it for Snow White for a very, 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 very long time.
Do we see a CDVSW, a Cinderella?
Whoever wins, we
versus-
lose.
Yeah. Is there a way you could work Snow White in as a cameo in a Cinderella?
Well, it worked
remake?
for Godzilla v Kong. I mean, Godzilla
Right.
was on the wane,
Okay, so a collab.
and then King Kong brought Godzilla back.
Yeah. So maybe that is the cinematic future of Snow White, is she's got to be a collab. She's got to be what Godzilla is for Kong, or, the Hulk is within the Avengers series. Like, she's not the star,
Mm-hmm.
but she could float in. And what does she do? She sews with birds or whatever it is that Snow White does. She does that in a supporting role.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know what Snow White.
or
does.
she's done, or this is the box office burial of Snow White,
I mean,
which is a great title for this YouTube episode, the box office burial of Snow
will
White.
she be outside the gate with Chauncey
Wow.
and Lyle? I mean, is she banging at the gates of Hollywood?
Let me in. Yeah, I think she's got a leg up on them because so much of her IP is still wrapped up in the Disney theme parks business.
Yeah,
In a way that Lyle Crocodile, Chauncey the Bear from Imaginary, they don't have any theme park resonance.
yeah.
Snow White, I think it's an embarrassment for her this weekend what happened at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
She eats shit at the movies and I think is done as a movie star, but she could still show up at the park on Monday and kind of, wag her D around there is a big deal.
Well, we talk about the table of horror icons.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking princess table,
Yeah.
does she lose her spot?
Oh, wow.
Like, did she have her spot out of she's grandfathered in
Right.
or grandmothered in? Pardon me. Snow White, iconic, the iconic dress, as you said before.
Is the iconic dress.
Yeah. And then this comes out, and all of a sudden, it's like better if this movie had never come out for her
Right.
stature at the table. Like, does she have to then go down a level?
So just talking movie.
Did the princess from The Princess and the Frog take her spot?
Tiana? Is that Tiana?
I'm not sure. Never saw that movie.
So, and I think in your situation, your age, that would be evidence in
That's a
certain
good thing.
cases if you had seen it. So
Yeah, it's a good thing I don't know that.
if we're talking just in terms of movies, we're not factoring in theme parks. We're not talking, Little Golden Book tie-ins.
Tiana, you're right.
Just I have nieces, so it's legal for me to know the name of Tiana. So if we're just talking movies and we're talking that table of
Yeah.
the Disney princesses and who's sitting there, at this point, is Moana sitting at the head of this table? I mean, after Moana 1 and then the blockbuster that was Moana 2, it's her and the Frozen sisters.
I think it's still the Frozen sisters until Frozen 3 comes out and we see how that goes.
Or what about the Moana live action remake? I mean, if Moana live action remake comes out next year and that makes a Billy,
Then
Moana's sitting at the
Moana's sitting at the
table.
head. Yeah.
But it's Moana, the Frozen sisters, Cinderella's
I think
there.
Cinderella's there.
'Cause Cinderella, the live action remake, with Lily James, right? Lily James plays Cinderella.
I believe so.
That opened to like we talked about last week. I think
70 something.
70 something million.
Yeah.
So she's at the table, and there's no princess in Wreck-It Ralph.
No.
And Ralph, he's
Not
not
a
allowed in, and
princess.
he's. I think at this point, there's pending. It's not a Marvin the Martian situation, but I
Yeah.
think he's named in the article.
Yeah.
X-
Well, his hard drive is filthy. So I think.
Snow White is serving the food. Snow White is serving the food.
Well, who else are we missing here? Because I do think.
Oh,
that
little Ariel.
Ariel.
Ariel is there.
From Beauty and the Beast, Belle.
And Belle, of course.
Belle's
Belle's
there.
sitting at the head of the table. I'm sorry. Belle is at the head of the table.
But I think.
I mean, that remake made, what, almost $2 billion?
Yeah.
Belle is sitting at the head of the goddamn box office princesses table.
And they were talking about a
Yes,
Princess and the
100%.
Frog. I
It's-
think live action, right? I mean it's been scuttled, but it was being talked about. I think Tiana gets the
Yeah,
seat. I
yeah.
think you got to give Tiana that seat now.
You got it. Tiana's got to be.
If she
you can't
ha-
say no. You can't. If you're Cinderella, you can't say I don't want Tiana. Tiana. You cannot say that. If you're Cinderella, you can't say I do not want Tiana at my table.
Yeah.
You can't say that, Cinderella. Whether you want to or not, don't say that.
Yeah.
So I think she's there, but Belle sitting at the head of the table. Yeah, she's the Frozen sisters. I think are sitting there when Belle walks in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and then they look at each other and they look down and they scoot down a few seats.